If they do that, the Cougars will be very, 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 very tough to beat.
Off the window, no. Roberts tried to get it. Shed for the win. Got it.
Just with 14 points, but he just looked, the way that he dominated the game was in controlling the pace and making smart decision after decision.
Coleman, 5, Slammer down.
Go to pizza spot before or after.
The dream is alive for Houston. Go Cougs! Let's go!
Welcome into another episode of Let's Rage Coogs, presented by the Saxenian Family. We are coming off the heels of a bounce-back victory for the University of Houston Cougars men's basketball team, the 8th-ranked Houston Cougars, who on Wednesday night defeated the Louisiana Rage Cajuns 91-45 inside of the Fertitta Center. They now improved 95-6 all time inside that building, which is just an absurd record that they've had since the Fertitta Center opened back in 2018. When we look at the box scores, Terrence Arsenault was the leading scorer with 14 points. Mercy Miller had himself easily the best game of his very, very young career. Now he had 12 points, 9 of which came in the first half, 2 assists, and the impact that he made early just defensively and making plays in general. And Milos Uzan had 13 points, 5 assists, and 4 rebounds. Multiple different players also got into double figures. We'll get into all of those specifics in a minute. Kris Gardner will be joining us momentarily live from the Fertitta Center. But before we get into that, Dayon, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. Another chance to kind of observe this Houston basketball team in this young season. I think I learned a little bit more about this team, although it's a lopsided game. I think just the opportunity to put more film out on the floor, get a chance to see them learn a lot more. Ready to discuss it.
Yes, sir, and let's get into it. This was actually first 5 minutes of the game. Louisiana came in and they were playing tight with the Houston Cougars to open the game. The Cougars struggling. There was a lot of just energy from the Raging Cajuns. They came in and like you said, they wanted to take it to Houston early. It took the Cougars a little bit to kind of get in gear, but once they did, they never looked back, and the defensive intensity turned up. I think Louisiana led 10-6 at one point early, and you know, I think one of the biggest things that Houston did really well, much better than they did back on Saturday against Auburn, just their ball movement, top to bottom. Emmanuel Sharp got it going. He actually got to the free throw line, missed the second free throw, and he hit a very tough contested step back three, and that kind of it kind of began the avalanche for Houston because they got it going offensively after that. So he was kind of the initial spark, and then Mercy Miller. It was very interesting. One of the first, he might have been, I don't know if he was the first sub off the bench. He was definitely the first guard off the bench for Houston in this game. Had an early spark for the Cougars as well. He was instant, just impacting the game and in more ways than just scoring, because we knew heading into the season that that's one thing that he could do ready out the gate. But he was really, really good defensively. He was in the passing lanes. He was tipping passes, getting steals, and just overall being a disruptor for Louisiana on top of his scoring that he had contributed. And he was a big spark for Houston and when they created separation against Louisiana as well. Dayon, what did you see from overall the team, but in particular the freshman Mercy Miller?
I think as soon as he come off the bench, that one catch and shoot three that he made from the corner looked effortless. The shot was good. The form was good. And after that, you kind of see some of those quote-unquote culture plays, not giving up on a play, got a steal, which turned right into a layup. And so, like, being around the ball, not giving up upon being heady in a way to get in a position to get that steal, something I noticed. He was tied for the team with 4 steals. So just kind of watching his defense, because I know with Coach Sampson, his halftime interview, he said, offense, we know that's what he brings. That's when to get him on the floor, but defense will keep him on the floor. He was able to control the ball, his height and his length, go after rebounds. So it looked really good. Bright side from what I've seen him after game one, I kind of mentioned that I would expect for him at some point to get on the floor. Coach Sampson kind of said that during the week, and he was true to his word. I think what he brings is a natural ability to score. We didn't really see him play that much on ball and kind of show that natural ability to score off the ball with the ball in his hands, but catch and shoot, he can keep finishing. So I think his role will continue to expand as he gets more experience.
Yeah, we were talking about it a little off air. I think we both find it interesting how Monday, during his availability, Calvin Sampson's ability leading up to this game against Louisiana, he was asked about Mercy Miller, and Calvin Sampson was really upfront about just obviously Miller did not play in that game against Auburn, and trying to get him minutes and being specific, being conscious about getting him more minutes. And it was very interesting. First, very early on, came into the game, and we saw it pay off for Houston in this game. And like you mentioned, Dayon, Mercy Miller, the quicker that he's able to pick up, like you mentioned, the quote unquote culture plays for Houston, the defense being in the right spots, being a disruptor like he did in this game against Louisiana, the quicker we're going to see him have a consistent role for this team, and he's going to be a very, very strong asset if he's able to pick that up quickly. Quite frankly, it reminds me a little bit about when Marcus Sasser was a freshman.
Yeah.
Because we saw that progression over the course of the season. Early on, there were stretches here and there where, again, this team is much more filled with veteran players in that 2019 team. But we saw throughout non-conference, Sasser kind of gained the trust of Kelvin Sampson, the coaching staff. By the time conference play, Marcus Sasser was in the rotation. I believe he was starting by the time conference had played, if I remember correctly, going back to 2019. Obviously, we know the story of what that ended up being for Sasser Cougars.
And I think I wouldn't be surprised if we see a similar scenario where Mercy continues to get more minutes, earns more minutes, and eventually potentially earning a starting spot. Because I think it was a brilliant way to schedule the game. Because what is a game against a tough opponent like Auburn do? It highlights some of your weaknesses and things that you need to work on as a team. And I think glowingly showing us that they need more people that could score the ball with the ball in their hands. He doesn't that can score. They need more scoring on the court. And I think he's one of the person that can bring it that natural, like Coach Sampson said. But it's about picking up the defense, picking up the rotations and stuff like that. But I think with his length and his ability to rebound, as well as defend and get 10 passes, because he had 4 steals. He was very active, very attentive, and he never looked rushed. I think watching Terrence tonight, it seemed like it was a conscious effort from the staff from telling him, "Hey, get shots up, get shots up." Watching the game, it seemed like people were like he was aggressive, and it seemed like it was points of emphasis for him to be aggressive. And I think once Mercy settles in and then kind of gets more earn that green light, I think his game will expand even more. But I wouldn't be surprised if like you said, that we see similar to Marcus Sasser, like he earned those minutes.
On the topic of Terrence Arsenal, since you brought him up, one happy birthday to him. It's his birthday, November 13th for Terrence Arsenal, turning 21 today. So big win for the Houston Cougars to celebrate his birthday, and he was actually the leading scorer in this contest. Finished with 14 points. Like you mentioned, Dayon, it seemed like it was a conscious effort to get him as many shots as possible. He was actually the only Cougar that had double-digit field goal attempts. He had 14 shots. Four for 14 shooting, 2 free threes, 4 for 4 from the free throw line. One thing Calvin Sampson will look at as well that he always sees from all his players, 5 rebounds to go along with his 14 points. He also had 2 assists, and I think kind of like what Calvin Sampson mentioned after the game on Saturday. For a lot of these players, Terrence Arsenal being one of them, JoJo Tugler, JVA Francis, they're still trying to get back in game shape, for lack of a better phrase, just because they didn't have the full off season. Obviously, Tugler and Arsenal in particular recovering from their individual injuries that they had to overcome from last season. And for Terrence, I think it was interesting. They brought it up on the ESPN Plus broadcast, but they said that Arsenal felt like he's still not at 100% yet. And the broadcast brought up when you look at him physically, it doesn't look like anything that at least to the naked eye that it's glaring and it's obvious. It looks like physically he's good. It could just be a mental thing where he's still trying to get all the way back, maybe all the way confidence in that Achilles tendon, which is, I mean, it's a very, very serious injury and a tough one to overcome for any athlete at any level. And maybe this is something that he can build off of and start to gain that confidence.
I think I think it's more of finding a rhythm, playing 5-on-5 in meaningful 5-on-5, because you can scrimmage and you can hoop, but I think in a game like setting, I think that's the part that he's missing, being out so long and getting back into that rhythm. Like you said, to the naked eye, physically he looks fine. So I think some of it also has to do with having confidence in his Achilles to kind of hold up and be able to do the things that he could do pre-injury. But I think also with that, I think it's more finding that game rhythm, finding that confidence and all the work that he's putting in to kind of get to the Terrence that we saw in spurts. That when he has a good game, you start seeing those pre-drafted Terrence Arsenal and Terrence Arsenal. So I think with time, more minutes. I like what I saw from him tonight, being aggressive, especially in a blowout like this. Let me use this as an opportunity to get shots up, get to my spots, and find my rhythm. Only way you're going to find your rhythm is you be out there and play and take the shots. And I think he did a good job of doing that.
Yep. On the topic of other Cougars that had a really strong night, Milos Uzan again had 13 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, and really he's kind of just stepped into that point guard role, and he's been a great distributor for the Cougars early on, just 3 games in. But he's playing he's playing the point guard role really well for Houston early on,
Really
and
well.
you still kind of see it. Houston still trying to just figure out in general how to be able to play amongst each other, but Milos, another good outing for the Cougars, and just being that point guard, being that distributor for the offense. And as a team overall, Houston did a much better job at getting assists. They had 31 made field goals, 13 of those came off of assist, which is a much better ratio than they had against Auburn, where I believe they had made 24 field goals against Auburn and only 7 assists. So much better job setting up their teammates for good looks. Ball movement was much better in this game than Auburn.
Definitely was much better. And I think Milos, like you said, I think he's adjusting well, but he still has more adjusting to do in regards of finding comfort in transition. I think one glaring that I'm seeing from him is, well, not even him particularly. I only say him because he has the ball most of the time in transition. I think once they kind of find that chemistry to play more in transition, know where LJ wants the spots, Emmanuel going to get his spots, and where they're going to run the floor. I think in the half court, like you said, he's running the game, running the team well, getting them into their set. So he reminds me a lot. Well, I don't say he reminds me of. He has the length of Dayon Giroux to be able to finish um, over taller defenders and finish in the paint with his floaters and some of those semi-hook shots. And so, but I definitely like what I see from him. I still want to see him get downhill maybe a little more. And then once they have that threat of him going to finish, it'll open up those lobs we would see a lot from Dayon and even Jamal. And so, definitely like what I see from here. I think he's going to continue to get more and more comfortable. I like his defensive pressure. I mean, kind of talked about that after last game. Want him to kind of pressure the basketball a little bit more, not allow the offense to kind of settle, kind of get into their set so easily.
I think one of the other things that has really impressed me, or at least caught my eye when it comes to Milos, is how effectively he has been a scorer for Houston.
Hmm.
Like you said, in the half court, seems to come natural for him. He is able to make the right read. He knows when to be aggressive, when to get drive to the lane, get layup, and his jump shot has been a pleasant surprise. Um, he's just been it's come more easy for him than I would have anticipated to be, just in terms of how natural of a scorer he's been early on for the Cougars.
Agreed. Agreed. And definitely surprised with that jump shot. Just kind of looking at the numbers and not really seeing much, remembering much from him at Oklahoma. I was surprised, but it looks good. Game one, shot that mid-range, crunch time, confident, knocked it down, and so he looks to have a well-rounded game. Doesn't wow you in any area so far, but I think if he puts it all together and really, really, I think if he puts it all together, he can have a bright future with his size and the way he can run a team.
Yeah, even against Auburn, he had a couple of big shots down the
Hmm.
stretch in crunch time. That being said, we're going to take a pause real quick. I'd like to thank, first and foremost, each and every single person that's taking the time out of their Wednesday night to join us here on this episode of Let's Rage Coogs, presented by the Saxenian Family. Of course, we also like to say thank you to Steve Saxenian for being the primary sponsor of not only today's episode of Let's Rage Coogs, but each and every single Let's Rage Coogs show for the remainder of the football and men's basketball season. So big thank you to Mr. Steve Saxenian. Of course, we also like to say thank you to Mike and Jennifer Pittman at Star Pizza for being a secondary sponsor on today's episode of Let's Rage Coogs. With 3 locations throughout the Houston area, Star Pizza is your go-to stop before or after the game. Be sure to check them out online at starpizza.net or follow them on social media at starpizza HOU. They constantly have different specials that are promoting literally almost every single day. Be sure to stop by on Tuesday and Fridays for their all-you-can-eat pizza buffet lunch specials. They have desserts. They have their red velvet cupcakes. They have the just a variety of options that you can choose from their menu. Great pizza, great price. Like I said, great deals. So be sure to check them out at any one of their locations throughout the Houston area, all within the 610 loop. That being said, getting back into gear between Houston and Louisiana. Looking at the scoreboard top to bottom, Juwan Roberts had a solid game, 11 points, 6 rebounds. Emmanuel Sharp, who we mentioned at the open, had 11 points, 3 for 5 shooting, had 5 rebounds himself. I think top to bottom, Houston did a really good job rebounding the ball. You'd wonder if that was a point of emphasis for Houston coming out of that game against Auburn. But looking at these numbers, JVA Francis only played 13 minutes in this game, but again, kind of similar to like we just mentioned with Terrence. It seems like he was able to get more shots to put up 9 points in 13 minutes, 3 for 5 shooting. Javier Francis' free throw shooting has drastically improved over the course
Very
of
improved.
this offseason. 3 for 4 in this game, and obviously going back to Auburn, he had 2 big free throws down the stretch that really helped the Cougars, but 9 points, 4 rebounds for him. Again, he's still working back from his groin injury that he suffered last month, and really this is probably the week and a half that he's kind of rejoined the team. What have you seen from Javier so far, or what did you see from him in this game against Louisiana?
Definitely looks improved. Definitely looks well developed in his low post games. He's to have confidence there. He can finish with both hands. But the glaring is that free throw. It kind of reminds me of DeAndre Jordan, who shot below 50% for most of his career. And you think late he started shooting over 70%. I know it's on a small sample size, but it looks well formed and he's knocking them down. But I really can't wait to see him kind of get back ready and see how they split the minutes with him and JoJo. Because I think when you have him on the court, if it's just him and JoJo or him and 4 of the guards or him and J1, he gives you another body that you can throw the ball in the post. And Houston needs that because jumpers aren't always going to fall.
Yep, and joining us from inside of the Fertitta Center is Kris Gardner of the Houston Round Ball Review. Kris, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing well after Coach Sampson cut my head off doing the presser, but it's all good. He's done it before in my 11 years covering him. It won't be the last time, so it's all good.
For what? What did you ask?
I asked Emmanuel his thoughts on the slow start to the game when they trailed 10-6, and Coach Sampson jumped in and said, "Slow start? What slow start? I don't even remember a slow start." And then he gave his analogy about, "Come on, son, now you're doing the Miss America walk across the stage. You're looking at the bunion on her foot. About the slow start." I thought it was a slow start. I mean, the missed shots, they were down 10-6.
It was Louisiana gave them trouble the first few minutes. Yeah, I mean, if this comes across the show, he's gonna chew all of our heads off because we said the same thing before you hopped on. But anyways, yeah. So what are your thoughts? What did you see from the game? And what were kind of the takeaways from that post game press conference, other than well,
one thing he
Sam's there?
said, and I have a clip from Terrence. Me and Duarte asked Terrence how he's feeling. I'm going to play that. But one thing that Coach was candid about, I mean, he's always brutally honest, was that in the Auburn game, Janai Broome was the toughest player on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And as Cougars, he said, as Cougars in our program, we pride ourselves game in, game out on having the toughest player on the floor. So Saturday against Auburn, to have an opponent be the toughest player on the floor was not good. And he said basically that cannot happen the rest of the season for us to be successful. So I asked Emmanuel about that. I asked Emmanuel messed himself up, because then I asked Emmanuel, said, "Man, what are your thoughts on?" Because Coach said, Emmanuel was the toughest player on the floor. So I said, Emmanuel, what are your thoughts on Coach saying you were the toughest player on the floor? And he didn't want to take the credit for it. He was trying to be very modest about it, and he just hummed and hawed, and and Coach Sampson said, great answer, Emmanuel. You were direct and didn't say anything. You were direct. So I flipped it around and said, okay, Emmanuel, what are your thoughts on Coach saying Saturday Janai Broome was the toughest player on the floor, and you guys cannot have that? And then he gave a much better answer about, yeah, Cougars, we pride ourselves on being the toughest player game in, game out. So for the opponent to do that on Saturday, that's something we cannot have going forward, basically what he said. Took him a long way to finally get to my answer that I wanted him to say. But it's, it's all good. If anybody who's saying, man, Coach is tough on Kris, I'm not a man almost half my life. It is all good, folks. So do not even trip. Don't read too much into this. Don't even worry about it. Trust me on that, okay?
That being said, from the game, we were kind of touching on it when you're talking about that toughness factor. Big component of that is the rebounds, and Houston, they beat Louisiana up on the boards, 46-28 on rebounds. And when you look at the numbers top to bottom, we have multiple players with four rebounds. Let me count them. There's 8-9 players that had 4 more rebounds in that game, which I think that goes back to that toughness factor. That was definitely a point of emphasis for the Cougars the last few days in practice.
Yeah. Coach said they practiced today. They practiced Monday, Tuesday, and earlier today. Try to get back into that Cougar basketball. So, and I think it showed. They were more
tonight
physical,
tonight was a practice against another team.
Yeah, real talk. Yeah. But yeah, let me see.
Jaywine. Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to see, get this comments from Terrence about his conditioning and how he feels, and in terms of how close is he to coming back, getting to 100%. Let's see if we can get that going here. Terrence, how do you feel conditioning wise? Where are you?
I feel like I'm getting better. I don't feel like I'm all the way there yet. I still have times where I'm really gassed, or I just don't have that extra push in me. But I'm getting there. Like games like tonight, like you say, him leaving me out there is helping me get back into that shape that I need to be in. So it's good. I feel like I'm getting better with it.
Terrence, aside from the physical part, when you do get the minutes like that and you are able to extend things, what does that do for you, just knowing that it had been such a long time that you've been on the court?
I mean, it does a lot. I mean, I felt great today going out there and playing. I really didn't have too many problems with my foot like I did the last 3 games, but I felt good today. Knowing that I'm back out there is already a blessing in disguise, so I'm just happy to be out there. So.
Go back to Kris here.
So yeah, short and sweet. He's getting there, and he did touch on the foot was bothering him more previously than tonight. So it's a positive that the ailment, playing more minutes, did not bother him tonight, and that's a positive going forward.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dayon.
No, I was just saying, kind of watching it, kind of goes back to what we were saying when we were kind of speaking, Terrence. It's kind of some conditioning and some kind of finding that rhythm, playing meaningful 5-on-5 game action. So I think it's both of those things kind of I don't want to say prolonging, but as he continues to play more, get those kind of rust off, we'll see him getting more back into form.
And
Chris, oh, go ahead.
Coach did say, Javier, he's getting better. He's getting the more minutes Javier plays, the better his conditioning gets. And Coach said flatly, one thing he learned about Saturday's game is we need to get healthy. We need to get Javier healthy. We need to get Terrence healthy. But Javier is a key to that 5-man rotation, because then you can have Jay and JoJo, and if necessary, Juwan some at the 5. When you have Javier and JoJo at the 5, splitting those 40 minutes is much more beneficial to everybody, instead of having Juwan at that 5, trying to do that as much as possible this season. So Javier getting healthy is a positive. Another positive.
Well, and another, what I was going to ask you, Chris, was what were your thoughts on Mercy Miller and the impact that he had on both ends on the court in this game against Louisiana?
It's good to see him get early minutes or minutes early. I think it's clear to everybody. Young man can score. Okay, he's a natural born scorer. What's going to get him in games and keep him on the floor is improving his defense. He had a few slip-ups defensively, but he's improved defensively today compared to the game against the Aggies. The scrimmage against the Aggies, he's making progress. He's getting better defensively, and that's important. So I would like, it's not my team, okay, but I would like to see this team go 10 deep. So that includes Mercy, that includes Ramon Walker, that includes Malik Wilson, that includes JoJo and Terrence. That's 10 deep. So I would like that, and that gives you some balance defensively, offensively. You got guys who can do different things and complement each other on the court. And if they do that, I think it's going to be a boost to how far this team can go this season.
I think it could be interchangeably. I think in spurts we may need a little bit more scoring. You go to Mercy, where it may be a sloppy game, you need a little bit more defense, muck it up a little bit. You might go with Malik, but I think that the scoring is probably a top priority, because he's one of in the different ways that he can score. Although he didn't put that on display tonight, I think everyone is going to give that Houston toughness and play those ways. But when it comes down to it, like you're playing someone like a A&M, like a Auburn, who can match you that, then it's about putting the ball in the hoop.
And Dan, you touched on in Saturday's show, Mercy can go get a bucket. Okay, obviously he's a freshman, and we need to see him do it more and do it consistently. But it looks like he is a guy who has that one-on-one game, those handles, that scoring ability, that he can get a bucket. It doesn't matter what the defense is doing, he can get a bucket.
And he brought this up, and I didn't even think about it until he brought it up. It was kind of similar to Marcus's journey. He got some early playing time. By conference came around, he played as well until the starting lineup. Who knows if Mercy will do that, but I can see him earning these minutes, continue to play well. Depends on what the team needs. Who knows where his role can grow to.
And CA's question, who's the winning shot for this team?
It's going to be LJ.
LJ or Emmanuel?
LJ did it against Auburn.
I think it, but it's also who has the hot hand. I think it'll be LJ. I think they'll go to LJ, no question. I think it'll be LJ.
I think he's option
Milos
one.
might have the ball in his hands to make the play. He option one, yeah.
But Emmanuel, he just has a knack for making tough shots, tough threes, difficult shots, and
most of his
shots.
Is catch and shoot, though. So his got to be catch and shoot. That's the difference with Emmanuel. Like, you pitch it to him, he can catch it and shoot it. But if you got to get it, where you going to give it to him and, hey, give me a screen or just get out the way, full over. I don't know if he's going to be that guy unless he's trying to get downhill and get to the free throw line, that he could do that. And because he's going to make his free throws, he's shoot almost 90%. But it just depends on the scenario.
And he started to get that step back.
LJ.
Yeah,
He's starting to get that step back.
I think it depends on the scenario, the opponent. Based on the matchup, it might be Jayon. If you want to go down low because you got to feel like you have an advantage on the block.
But Andy, when you're watching that step back, you got to watch it against top team. We didn't see that against Auburn. That's
against Auburn, he struggled. Yeah,
exactly.
He struggled when he would
his ability to score against top competition. That's what I'm looking at. Like he can do it against Louisiana, cool. But when you get going up, that's what I want to see. That's what tells me okay. And when it comes down to it against Arizona, Kansas, tournament time, whoever it may be. All right, but yeah, that's just me though.
No, you're not wrong on that. I think one thing that could help everybody and help LJ in crunch time is spacing on the floor, because you put him in the middle of the floor and he can go right, left. If you got Emmanuel on one side, and if Mercy becomes a threat that opponents have to say, we cannot leave this young man open, then LJ go one-on-one and then advantage LJ, because then if teams collapse on him, he can kick it left to right to E or Mercy, or if Milos can become the reliable three-point threat, whatever. That'll be a boost for the team too.
Yep, I agree. And then with the bigs, like we were talking about before you got on, Javier making his free throws, JoJo's making his free throws last game, and so like you said, spacing is a huge key. That's one thing I'm glad you brought that up. That's big. Spacing is huge. That's one of the things that Coach Sampson mentioned. That's why you can bring Mercy on, because now you can give Milos even more room to penetrate, even more room for Jayon in the mid post to be able to operate, for Terrence in the mid post when you want to isolate him to operate. So that's definitely key. And even for LJ to be able to play, I think spacing is key. That's a great point.
And I want to get y'all's thoughts on this in our viewers as well, Andy. But Coach Sampson said it a few times. He said it in press conferences, Zoom calls. He scheduled Auburn early because this team needs to be tested. To me, that indicates Coach Sampson really believes this team is a good team. He has a good team. So tonight was a get-right game. Okay? I mean, let's be real. It was a get-right game. Louisiana could be one of the best teams in the Sun Belt. Good for them. But losing to Auburn, Louisiana, wrong place, wrong time. All right? I mean, the Cougs were going to win this game just by whatever points they wanted to win by. But this was a get-right game. But the fact Coach Sampson scheduled Auburn game 2 of the season, which is, not common. Then you got the tournament in Vegas. He's testing his team early, and then the gauntlet of the Big 12, because I believe he really thinks this team is talented enough to handle these tough matchups, because he sees what this team can be down the line in February and March.
And at the same time, I think he realizes how much they need to face good competition early with the new addition, especially at point guard, to see how to see how Milos and the team play in these type of games. That way, when it comes to conference and you're in a game in and game out, you kind of have that experience to draw from.
It kind of connects to Crabtree's comments where he says the team's still getting used to Milo's different style of play. Jamal was a very different point guard. And to your point, Dayon, like you mentioned earlier before Kris hopped on, just that familiarity with each other. Jamal Shed and really all the players on the floor had just a very good amount of chemistry where they're fast break. Jamal Shed's bringing the ball up, and he knows that Emmanuel Sharp, LJ Cryer, and going back to years past, Marcus Sass was right behind them, and he would do the little shovel pass because he knew where they were going to be. And that's something that with time, Milos and this team are still trying to figure out. In the half court, Milos has done a great job of being that distributor, but it's still not as polished as it can be. Certainly not where it will be a month from now, 2 months from now, and so on and so on.
Yeah, we're seeing it's the first few weeks of him playing with new teammates. So they're going to be growing pains. And as talented and legendary Jamal Shed ended his UH career, his first year was nowhere near as good as his last year at UH. So Los is starting at a different point of his career than Jamal did, He's trying to play catch up with his new teammates, and get that chemistry offensively and defensively. We can see the talent. He's a different kind of guard than Jamal. He's going to do different kind of things defensively. He's not Jamal, but he can do some things offensively that Jamal couldn't do. So it's all a mix of how everything, as Dan likes to say and say it well, it's a balance of how when to score, when to pass, when to give it up to your team, when to feed the hot hand, all those things. We can't expect that to be a finished product after 3 games.
Yeah, well
This
said.
team is talented.
I think,
Okay, this team is talented.
Yep. Yeah, definitely talented, and he's talented.
Yes.
Like he has the length and the I don't want to say reminds me of Rajon Rondo, but he has that length of being a long guard, kind of similar to Dayon. Since we're talking Houston, he can has the length, can finish at the rim and do some of the things Dayon did. And I think with that, as he continues to be a little bit more aggressive getting downhill to start to open up some of those lobs, you see even more assists. And like Andy mentioned, how I said earlier, is playing more freely in transition. I think that's where the chemistry still needs to develop a little bit more.
And he seems to have developing a reliable corner 3-point shot. And that'll help spacing with whoever's leading the offense at that particular time.
Real quickly, let's take one final pause on this show. Again, I'd like to remind everybody that's joining, first of all, if this is the first time you've ever interacted with this show, whether it be on X or on any of the YouTube platforms, whether it be on the Houston Roundball Review YouTube channel or the Pod Slam and Jamma YouTube channel, make sure you hit the like button and hit the subscribe button. That's the easiest way to help us out. Of course, we also like to say thank you to Steve Saxenian for being the primary sponsor of today's episode of Let's Rage Coogs. He will be the primary sponsor for each and every single post-game show throughout the football and men's basketball season. Our next post-game show will be 2 nights for I guess maybe it'll be Saturday morning by the time we start the show for Let's Rage Coogs After Dark. Not maybe, it will be, because that game's going to kick off at 9:30 Central Time between Houston football and Arizona. So big thank you to him, and also a big thank you to Star Pizza for being a secondary sponsor on today's episode. Like you mentioned earlier, be sure to visit them online at starpizza.net, where you can check out their menu and order online ahead of time, and also be sure to check them out on social media at Star Pizza HOU. They're constantly promoting different specials, deals throughout the week, and be sure to check them out at any of their 3 Houston locations. And be sure when you visit them to tell them you heard about them on Let's Rage Coogs. Once again, that's Star Pizza. They've been in the Houston area and have had free delivery since 1976. So big thank you to Star Pizza for being a sponsor on this episode. Kris, one thing I want to touch on before we move on, and it's not necessarily game specific to Louisiana, but there were some other news that was officially announced today, and that was that Shadow Creek High School guard Bryce Jackson signed his national letter of intent to play for the Houston Cougars in the upcoming 2025 season. Obviously from Shadow Creek, following in the footsteps of Ramon Walker, who came from Shadow Creek as well. Any comments on really Bryce and what we can kind of see from him going forward?
Yeah.
What's his style of play?
I talked to him a little bit, very briefly in the second half. He, his dad, and I are trying to hammer out details of doing a video interview with him, like I did with Isaiah Harwell and his dad. Hopefully, get that done either this Saturday or next Saturday. But as Coach Sampson mentioned, the quote from Coach in the press release kind of explained what colleagues told me in the article I wrote about Bryce when he committed to the Cougs, was that when he was healthy, he was one of the top players. And the guys told me in the greater Houston area. The quote from Coach today was, when he was healthy, Bryce was one of the best players in the state of Texas. Okay, so that shows you how talented he was when he was healthy. Now, I'll say this. I guess I can say this. The article referenced that Bryce will play next season. I'm not certain of that just yet. Okay, he's still recovering from his leg injury, and it was a bad injury. Okay, it was a catastrophic injury. So it would not shock me if he redshirts next season. I'm not saying that's been etched in stone yet. I'm leaning towards that. Okay, and Ron HD is touching on the comment right here. 4:00 tomorrow, Thursday afternoon. Kingston Flemings is going to announce his college choice. It's either UH or Texas Tech. Kingston Flemings is one of the top 20 players in the country, one of the top point guards in the country. As of 10:11 this evening, I have reason to believe advantage UH over Texas Tech. I'm not a betting man on this one, though, because I am not as certain as I was about Isaiah Harwell committing to the Cougs. It's that close between UH and Texas Tech. Kingston has connections to Texas Tech in Lubbock and all those kind of things. So tune in tomorrow. If I do my noon Thursday show, I may have some more info, more definitive answer by noon. But I say right now it's advantage UH. But my Cougs apparently might also have another person going to commit to the Cougs, and they might get 3 of their top 6 wish list players. And this one kind of surprised me because I didn't think the money was going to be right on this one. Young man from Louisiana, big man, Kris. Sounds like he's going to commit to the Cougs. So that'd be 3. Heck, what is that? 3 of the top 40 players in the country. So yeah,
a really loaded 25 class.
Yeah.
So we shall see. That being said, Crabtree also says, going back to the Louisiana game, 17 steals was impressive tonight. Defense had a get-right game, too. I think it just goes back and to harp on what the players have probably been drilled into for the last few days after that Auburn game, especially with the way the game ended the last 6 minutes, where the Auburn Tigers really did a great job of picking Houston apart, going back to Johnny Broome and how physical and how effective he was down the stretch against Houston. That being said, from now, Houston gets 9 days off. They won't return to the court till November 22 when they're playing Hofstra. So what that means for Houston, a lot of practices, a lot of more stuff that they're going to focus on and polish. And then it's a little bit of a grind after that Hofstra game, because they have to travel to Vegas. They're going to play 3 games on the road in Vegas. And they're going to play a really, really tough Alabama team come that game. So they're just going to keep focusing and keep practicing against each other till that Hofstra kind of another tune-up game, and then they'll get tested again come that tournament. Or I guess that it is a tournament now.
Now it's a tournament. Yeah, they made it into a tournament. It took a while for the NTA to grant waivers to this event, this MTE, to kind of change things around and accept it as a tournament format. I'm looking forward to that. But these days off give a chance for Javier to get healthier, Terrence Arsenault to get healthier, the team to get healthier. It's not ideal, have this time off out of 3 games into a season, but that's the way things are, so just deal with it and get ready for Vegas. Don't look past Hofstra and anything of that sort, not at all, but got a schedule played out. I'm looking forward to the game against Alabama, and it should be a great matchup. If the Cougs are healthy as they can be on November 26th, it should be a very good matchup. If they're still not healthy, as they will be later on, February, March, that's all right. They're going to compete and give everything they have. I'm looking forward to it, though, definitely. Mark Sears, hell of a guard, another All-American, so I'm looking forward to that matchup.
That being said, that's pretty much going to wrap things up for this episode of Let's Rage Coogs. Kris, I'll toss it back over to you. Any final thoughts, anything that caught your eye either from the game, post-game presser that we haven't talked about, and obviously, of course, where can people find you?
Well, as always, thank you to Andy and Dayon for keeping the show going while I was in the post-game press conference, as Coach Sampson made fun of me and my question for the slow start. But it's all good. Like I said, everybody, trust me. Coach and I go back a long way, so it is not personal. I don't take it as such. But as always, thank you for your support of Let's Rage Coogs. Thank you for supporting the Houston Round Bar Review and the YouTube channel. Sign up to the channel, sign up to Houston Round Bar Review on YouTube, and follow me on Instagram and TikTok and all those social media platforms. And as I'm proud to say, with a new logo, but as always, the Houston Round Bar Review since 1994. Local name, global perspective.
No worries, Kris. I'm sure if I was there, I would have probably asked the worst question. So you're good. Dayon, I'll toss it over to you. Where can people find you, and any final thoughts?
Good to see this Cougar team take another step worth getting better, getting more chemistry, working through some of the early woes as each team is around the country. Got big expectations for this team. Very talented team. Always good to be alongside you guys. Thank you for every single person who commented, stepped in. No matter how long you watch, we appreciate the support. Thank you to all our sponsors, Star Pizza, the Saxenian Family, and as always, go Cougars.